Hello again, folks, and I thought while I still have the stitches in my back until Thursday, I would actually do an update on the 2-year anniversary with the Vypyr VIP 2, as you see running in the background. I don't have the cable plugged in, so it's doing the cool little freaky light show that you can turn off. And if you were actually looking down at the same Para 2 controller I have down on the ground, it says on the LCD screen on it, plug in, tune up, and rock out. But I would have to say, I'm just going to give more kind of thoughts and so forth with my 2 years of experience with the amp. Now, a lot of these quote-unquote modeler amps, a lot of people, they're not crazy about them, and they think that, they sound, like garbage, aka not line 6, and I would have to say, before I journeyed down the Peavey modelers, I really did take a close look at like line 6. Even did take a look at the very popular Fender Mustang series, and again, I wasn't impressed with the features. Not to mention, I wasn't impressed with the versatility of the sound, as basically the only thing you were getting from those amps that was decent was Fender stuff, which, is understandable. That was the great thing about when Peavey started doing the Vypyr line. And quite honestly, it was very crappy that Peavey decided to go with the fanged look on the Vypyr Gen 1s, because the Vypyr Gen 1, I had both the solid state Vypyr 30, and later on I did have the Vypyr Gen 1 Tube 60, which had 112 AX in the preamp tube, and then ran on dual 6L6s in the power section. And the thing that was great about that amp was it actually emulated a lot of amps and did them very well. And the effects were kind of, they didn't have as good of flexibility as, say, you get in this model, which is pretty much the kind of current kind of model, because the Vypyr Pro series is still kind of an out of reach for most folks, including myself. That said, the Vypyr Generation 1s, as I like to say, they had excellent amp emulation, quote-unquote simulation. And so one of the settings on there was actually the deluxe setting, and if you threw that on and gave that to someone who played a Fender Deluxe, you would have no way for them to tell you that it wasn't a Fender Deluxe. It was that realistic. And one of the great things about that first generation Vypyr line was, especially when the tubes got put into place, it just brought so much more warmth and vibrance to the music. Or sorry, not the music, but what you were playing through them. Now, getting back to, as I refer to these as basically Gen 2's, the Vypyr VIP line, what they kind of did was they kind of picked a little here and a little there out of the Gen 1s, added one or two things for some more modern-esque kind of options. One of the things that was lost was the lovely deluxe amp setting and amp simulation. That was something that's definitely was sorely missed in this generation too. But with that said, let me come down to the gist of it all. Again, 2 years, 99% of my playing has been headphones on through the USB 2.0. That was one of the things that they did right in this version, was working on the USB output. The USB output for not only the updating but also the actual output is in a higher codec. The Generation 1 Vypyrs were very finicky over their USB, and their sound was very much mono-esque, I would say, for USB recording. This, it's still a belief for the most part. I think it's the codec in the Windows program says that it's 192 kilohertz stereo, but I mean the reality is I don't hear any difference between the effects coming out of the actual speaker when I rarely do play over the speaker or the amp, or through the headphones. Like, I don't hear the how it should be panning left to right and so forth. Again, further much, let's kind of mumble on here a bit as I'm doing and talk about what they did do as well also right in this. I'm not sure who gave them the thoughts and stuff, if it was those on the Peavey forum or whatnot, but the reality is, if you're an at-home player, or maybe even someone who has a hard time or doesn't want to lug around a lot of stuff, this amp, also having the bass amps in it, which is just the 2 sets, which you can also put effects to. Even in one of my earlier videos way back last year, I think, I actually did use the Sandpair's built-in wah with the bass, and it kind of did give me that Black Sabbath Sweet Leaf kind of opening kind of sound. But not only does it do bass very well, it also does acoustic guitar amplification very well, and that's where this amp really does shine, is in its versatility of sounds and what it can do for you, compared to, say, a Line 6 product or a Fender Mustang product. I know there's lots of people that love the Fender Mustangs, but again, I don't know of it having an actual bass setting or a setting for acoustic that you can actually plug in your acoustic or your bass into and play it. So to me, those are like some of the biggest selling points. Now, the VIP2, which I have here, is only 40 watts, and I would have to say that yes, once you start pushing up around the halfway point of the master volume, you really are kind of start really pushing the amp a little bit too far in its power section. If someone was to actually go out and buy one of these amps today, I would have to say, especially if you want to have it as a possibility as a backup amp for, like, say, like gigging or whatnot, playing bass or acoustic or guitar through, the 100 watt version is probably a must buy, and also considering it's only about $100 more, and I believe it also has a power sponge function on the back of the amp. That again is one of the things that's key to these amps, is not only its flexibility, which unfortunately though doesn't get unlocked when you buy the amp itself. You have to buy a Sanpera 1 or 2 controller with it to really fully unlock things like the 30-second looper and so forth. I was lucky enough that when I bought my Vypyr Tube 60, the guy threw me in the Sanpera 2 controller, and knock on wood, it's been going for about 3 years now, maybe close to 4, because I think it was around 2013 I'd gotten the tube amp and the controller, and this amp is now going on 2 years plus now. So I would have to say it has been stable. It hasn't had any issues other than an occasional getting auto detected by the computer sometimes, and you got to turn it on and off. But I mean, most times it's just I simply pick what I want to play from my stack of guitars that I've amassed. Low end, and of course the Gibson Flying V is kind of a high end, and the DBZ guitar is kind of a higher end type of guitar. But I mean, whatever I have the hankering to do, play bass, practice bass, I should say, acoustic, or anything electric, all I gotta do is flip it on, plug it in, select my preset from the acoustic, bass, or guitar presets, and away I go. Headphones on, doesn't disturb anyone upstairs or around me, and when I do have the chance to play it, I do play it. So, with that said, 2 years of use, literally on, I would say, at least a every 2 to 3 days usage. The amp has done very well, and again, I cannot recommend any other amp for anyone that actually does want to dabble in acoustic, bass, as well as electric guitar. This amp does it all. Also, the fact that even right now it's cheap, like $299 for the 100-watt version. The version I got right now goes for $199 US. The only thing that's a bit of a pain in the rear where Peavey gets you on these on these amps, sorry, I almost said guitar amp, but you know, it's a veritable instrument performing amp, which is what they've called VIP. The Sanpera controller, the Sanpera 1 that only has the single volume pedal, it goes for $99 US. Sometimes you can find them on the used market, but to fully unlock these amps, you need the dual controller Sanpera 2 controller pedal. It really does unlock these amps. So I mean, even if you went out today and bought what my setup between the controller and the amp, you're looking, other than a MIDI connector cable between the controller and the amp, you're looking at under $400, and you can't go wrong with that. You know, for what the amp offers you as a user, you know, that's basically, you know, especially a home user, and I'm still, you know, blown away when people actually say, you know, wow, you sound really good. And it's partially because of the instruments, no matter expensive or cheap, whatever I've modded or not modded, but it's also the amp and what it does, you know, both and both. And of course, you know, what I'm able to play like at times helps as well too. But that said, I get compliments on when I use the amp and a lot of the patches I do that are just preset patches that are included with the amp. Like the Classic 50 patch that they call Classic Legend, which is the first patch on the first bank. You know, there's tons of people that love that patch, and it sounds really good for rock and blues. And, you know, there's a lot of cool patches on it. You know, synthy stuff, octave stuff. Pretty much anything that you would want or need on a basic level gets you in the door for this amp until you are more advanced as a player or so forth. Mind you though, I still would say that this amp even would suffice for professional level type players as well. It's just versatile and that good that much. Now it's going on 16 minutes or so. I'm going to wrap up this talking part, and I'm going to leave you just simply some samples. The majority of these samples are mostly guitar. I'm going to give you a bass sample on a bass, or more so the bass that I built from a bass kit I bought near the beginning of the year. Bass through it, my Harley Benton acoustic, electric acoustic, and then single coil Telly style pickup, Strat pickup, and the Gibson Flying V with the Dragonfire Vintager pickups, and give you an idea how the amp sounds still direct through USB recording, as I'm pretty much doing 99.9% of the time. If I can, in the new year, I would like to get a mic, and then I can actually give a proper how the amp sounds non-USB to folks, and I really would like to do that, and I'm hoping to get a separate mic and headphone setup to be able to do so for folks. So again, unfortunately, with my rambling, I'm going to end things here, and hope you've enjoyed my little review talk about the Vypyr VIP 2 and my 2 years of experience with it, as well as the sound samples I'm going to leave you showing the versatility of the amp. Again, thanks for viewing this long video, and take care everyone. Bye for now.